in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Montana, and all those incredibly important air traffic control facilities in those states. What we're going to discuss today is something that's probably a little new to most of you and new to the FAA, and that is business acumen. And business acumen and fiscal responsibility is something that is really at the forefront of government today as we look at reduced budgets, we look at strained resources. We need to make really great decisions on what we do with our reduced staffing levels, with our reduced overtime budgets, with our reduced general resource utilization. So we need to come together. It is important for us to come together to learn how to do that. Today we are going to discuss basically two facets of business acumen. That is getting accurate data through our LDR coding and getting accurate data of what we use our overtime for in the overtime wheel. Will be the crux of what we talk about today. We will briefly discuss how that is all going to roll into a new tool called Facility Work Plan sometime in the very near future. I'm hoping that you enjoy today. We get some really good intellectual understanding of what we're going to do in the Rocky Mountain District to be more fiscally responsible and make great business decisions. So what is business acumen? I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. You can certainly go to Wikipedia or pick up a Harvard Business book and you can get a nice definition. In fact, there might even be a definition in Webster's. I've never looked it up. We've defined business acumen several different ways in the agency alone in the last 5 or 6 years. And there's a lot of misconceptions. So let's get rid of the misconceptions. Business acumen does not mean spend less money. Business acumen does not mean cut overtime. Business acumen does not mean lean out and get rid of people. Business acumen actually is the use of business data to make solid, fiscally responsible business decisions. It is as simple as that. So, what's important is to have good data, which when I went to DC, I learned a couple of things. First of all, business acumen is misunderstood all over this agency. The first things I heard for 6 months, oh, you're here to cut overtime. No, I'm not here to cut overtime. Oh, you're here to make sure we can lean out our facilities. No, that's not what I'm here for. There was a misconception of that. It took me 3 or 4 months just to get through what business acumen is. The second thing I learned in DC is we have very, very bad data. Some data is good. We know how much time air traffic controllers spend on position because we have legal documents like Dash 10s. Although we use CrewArt, it is a legal document. We know who's working in position when. We probably even know, to a certain extent, when they're on break. We know when people are providing OJTI. Why is that? There's pay associated with that. So we know certain things about what we do every day. What we don't know is all the other things that are involved in air traffic control. Controllers, managers do a lot of duties that are not working airplanes. We have not been very good over the years at capturing that data. So I'm going to give you some tools. We're going to have LDR coding. We have it now, but we're going to have an LDR coding direction to give you good, solid direction and understanding of how we code LDR and why. The second thing is how we code overtime. For many years, we, as an agency, have said it's operational overtime. And that was the end of it. But we didn't know why we use that overtime. It was just operational. By definition, operational overtime just means, well, we had to use it for the operation. We don't do anything else. And we were actually sending a message to our appropriators that all we do is work airplanes. That's all we do. And since we didn't have good business data, unfortunately, our bosses, our executives got to sit in front of Congress many, many times. And when they were asked questions financially, resource utilization-wise, we did this. Air traffic control is very, very complex. There's lots of moving parts. We really don't know what we do with all our resources. That's just what we had to do for years. And for years that worked because we provide the greatest air traffic control service in the world. That is really the crux of what we're going to do. So the LDR coding, the overtime coding, will all roll into another tool that I spend a lot of time in DC developing, which you haven't heard of yet probably. It's called Facility Work Plan. And Facility Work Plan is something we probably won't talk about a lot today, but it is basically a data port, a balance sheet of our labor hours, if you will. So we don't have to sit in front of Congress and say, it's very complex. we can say, what do you want to know about our business? We can tell you what we need resources for, what we use resources for, and how we use them to provide the safest, most efficient air traffic control system in the world. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what. I think it's important now to talk about why business acumen. And although I hit on a little bit, the why is probably the most important thing. Because if you don't understand the why, there's really no reason to do it. So I think everybody in the district actually has seen Simon Sinek video. Some data is good. We know how much time air traffic controllers spend on position because we have legal documents like Dash 10. Although we use CrewArt, it is a legal document. We're going to talk about the why, the golden circle. Why is in the target of that circle. It's the most important thing that we talk about, is why we do things. We also talk about how we do them, and we were going to talk about how we do business acumen today with our tools. It's important, and we're going to talk about how. But that's not the most important. And the outer circle is what? So what Simon Sinek talks about, and we talk about in this district, is everybody knows what we do. We provide the safest, most efficient air traffic control system in the world. That's what we do. We're good at it. But how do we do that? And in business acumen, we do too. We stay within budget. What does that even mean? And why do we stay within budget? And why do we even care about those resource expenditures? It's important. I want to be able to sit in front of the people who make this decision for us and explain how I use U.S. citizens' resources to provide the greatest air traffic control system in the world. That's important to me. So why? Why is it important? It's important for an air traffic controller because they should be able to explain what their profession is about. It is important for an air traffic controller because how we use our resources and how we account for our resources is going to determine how many resources you get. Being able to explain what you do every day adds value to what you do.
Aaron, when we published our schedule, we had one controller, one CPC is on primetime annual leave, and a second CPC is on military leave, bringing us down to our normal staffing number for the day. We take a sick leave hit on the day of the shift. How do we code that? Do we code that to the primetime annual leave or for the military leave?
That's a very complex and somewhat simple answer, but it actually is very complex. When it comes to philosophy, here's what I will say about overtime code. We will never be 100% granular, accurate, perfect, just because we're human beings. So we do make judgment calls on occasion, and that's one of those ones that, quite frankly, I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about. But I will, but it is a good question, so I want to talk about the difference between obligation and choice. Okay. So what we have, the situation you have a primetime annual leave person. You have a military leave person. And you have a sick leave person. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and that's kind of the order they happen in.
Exactly.
Here's the interesting part about all three of those. Those are all three obligations. Those are not choices. You know, we don't, I guess we really, if you start getting into the laws and the regulations for operational contingency, I guess technically speaking, yes. I can absolutely call the military and go, look, they work full-time for me, part-time for you. This is an operational contingency, and no, you can't have it. We can do that. Are we going to do that? Probably not. Because we support the defense of our country just like they support the air traffic control system. So it's a brotherhood, if you will. So if I had to pick one, Chuck, I would pick military because the only one that I've got wiggle room on. It's the only one that I can go, well, technically, I guess I could have said no. All right? But the reality is this. It is all going to come under leave liability in the big picture. So remember, there's lots of things inside of each of these categories. Lots of things. Lots of program codes. Lots of Article 48 code. Lots of different kinds of QC. I could say it was for an SSR. I could say it was for a QC investigate. It's ACV. There's lots of things inside of each one of these. The reality is, these are all the same bucket. So That is that 1%. It's similar to when we were talking about, we talked about LDR codes and what's missing, right? No aviation medical on there. Okay, so we can talk about that. Here's the reality. In our district, we have about roughly 500,000 labor hours in our district. Okay? Am I really going to argue about 50 or 60 hours a year of that type of thing? It is what I've always said, we spend a lot of time arguing about the little things because they're easy to understand. We are not going to spend in this district a lot of time arguing about whether I have Dunkin' Donuts coffee on Friday or Starbucks, because the reality is it does not affect my budget. So there are some granular losses in data, and I think what's really, really important to understand, hey, we're only going to get to 95%, probably ever. That's the goal, 95% accuracy. And 5% is kind of lost in the flow. But I'll tell you right now, when you're only 50%, getting to 95 is incredible. Let me tell you a quick success story about this overtime. So when I went to DC in October of 2015, 92% of our overtime was coded as operational overtime with no causal factor. 92% was really complex operational stuff. 92% is a lot when you're talking about $40 million a year. When I left DC in April, we were at 78% coded of that 92%. All right, here we go. So I want to kind of wrap up this LDR coding piece a little bit. Everybody, like I said, is going to have this magical list. It is not all-inclusive. There are things that are going to fall through the cracks. In fact, there are lots of things that are going to fall through the cracks, but they are small things. They are the tiny things. They are not the crux of this. Our goal in this district is to be, I'll say, 95% accurate on accounting for our time. 95%, I think, is a fantastic goal because we've got some small cracks to fall through. Here's the good news. We're already more accurate than anything. Every person works 8 hours a day, $20.80 a year. I mean, that's what you get paid for, right? Of this 8 hours, let's just break it down. I'm going to say, on average in our district, 4 hours and 15 minutes for an air traffic controller or supervisor spent on position. Accurate. We're over 50% already. We haven't done anything, and we're at 50%. Okay? I'm going to say that generally speaking, they take 2 hours of breaks a day. Holy cow, we are 6:15 out of 8. I can't do math that quickly, but I'll just say that. That's pretty good, right? I mean, that's 80%? 64 would be 80%. So we're at 78% accurate. We've not even made an effort. All this stuff is trying to capture what's left. And so really, what's left is an hour and 45 minutes. An hour and 45 minutes seems like nothing. Unless you're a taxpayer, you go. So, for 20% of the day, we pay them to do nothing? Well, we know that's not true. We know for a fact that's not true. It is our opportunity to use proper LDR coding to prove that we do other things. And not only to prove that we do other things, but so we can make sure that we can obtain the resources needed in the future to continue to do collaboration, to continue to do training, to continue to do all of the other things that make this the safest, most efficient airspace system in the entire world. That is collecting data to make good, sound business decisions. This is the first step in business acumen. Proper planning will also help you with causal factors. You'll know what the causal factors are before they happen. And that's the whole point of planning and business acumen, right? We can plan these things. We can staff our building appropriately. So the wheel. The wheel was probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had developing this week, because not only do we have to get through a lot of political maneuvering and I'll say philosophy and things that were stuck in people's heads, like overtime is bad, like sick leave is bad, like giving somebody annual leave is bad, and all those things. We had to get through that. And we finally came to this. This was has been vetted and worked all the way up to the COO level. So we start in order of priority of the things that are important to us on our value system and our obligations. So the number one thing, we're going to build a schedule together using the week. The operation is always number one. Why are we here? We're here to save lives and separate airplanes and provide the world's safest and most efficient air traffic system. That's operations. That's number one. There is no more important project than the operation. Hey, you know what? Metroplex is important. Hey, you know what? Redesigning airspace of other types is important. Hey, you know what? Quality control is important. Hey, you know what? Training somebody is important. Those are all important things, of which none matters if we don't take care of the operation. That's number one. There is no more important than that. Second thing that's important, we have legal and contractual obligations. Legal on a pay and benefits package given to people by Congress. That's your leave. Congress gave me that. The FAA didn't give me that. The COO of the FAA did not decide that I get 8 hours annual leave every 2 weeks, nor did I get 4 hours sick leave. They didn't decide that. We didn't negotiate with the bargaining unit to give them those rights. Nope. We all get it. The federal government employee has leave, and it's a liability. It's on the books. You're going to pay me now, pay me later. It's a liability. That's why it's number one. Number two, hey, guess what? Operation comes right back into it, right? Unusual operational leave is the number one thing we do. It's number one. That is a choice, and in some ways, not really a choice. So when you get leave liability in the first two categories, those aren't really business choices you're making. That's the world we live in. I can't, as the manager at Green Bay Tower, decide that, you know, this year, I don't think I'm going to call an overtime for Oshkosh. I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think that would work well. That's an unusual operational need, and I got to take care of it. Right? It is what it is. As we roll down the list, training. Training is now, this is third on priority, but it's pretty darn important. It's more important than some other things we do. If I don't train people, I don't have the next generation of controllers. Right? I don't have them. So it's pretty high on my list. Needs to be done. But we'll talk about it. It doesn't need to be done all the time. It doesn't need to be at the expense of the operation. And sometimes you don't do it so you can accomplish something else, and that's all. Those are all decisions we make. Quality control, incredibly important, because we're the safest, most efficient air traffic system. We need to make sure that we continue that way. Quality control is important. Not as important as training our next generation. Not as important as taking care of the operation. Not as important as taking care of our legal responsibilities and contractual obligations under leave liability. But it's important. Article 48 in collaboration, 100% totally a choice. We signed a contract. We have a bargaining unit. We've decided as an agency with our bargaining unit partners that collaboration is going to be important to us. It is a priority. We are going to do collaboration. Is collaboration more important than the airplane flying? No. Is it more important than giving leave? I would say even NAC would agree. Hey, we're going to do more collaboration. We're not going to give any prime time this year. That's not going to fly. Not as important. Important? Not as important. Programs. Programs are important. We need to move the NAS, whether that's Metroplex, TAMR, whether that's any other program that is advancing the NAS, putting new technologies, new procedures, all important. Can we do that at the detriment of the operation? And the answer is always no. No. I cannot shut down Denver Tracon today so that I can do a really cool project. That's not how it works. So that's the reason that the order came about through probably 3 months of debate with lots of people. There were people who really wanted to put leave liability where programs is. We don't have to do that. Yeah, you do. No, contract says 2 weeks. No, wait. First of all, federal law says you have to give me That's federal law. That has nothing to do with the contract. Stop talking about the contract. This is for all of the Rocky Mountain District. Okay? Anyway, here's where we are. So we're going to build a schedule together, which I think is probably the easiest way to understand assignment of overtime. Okay? And we're going to use the real whole basic number. I sit down, I build my schedule, my lines, all my controllers, my CPCs, my developmentals, my counters, as we call them, whatever that looks like. I've got my schedules all built in web schedule, and I push my magic button, it does all that fancy calculation stuff, and it spits out that number. If every person that I have available on Tuesday day shift comes to work I got 9. That's not enough. I need 10. So before I even start doing any of this other fancy stuff, the operation is number 1, and I need to start with 10. So guess what this is the time when you can accurately say +1 overtime staffing shortage. That is the only time that staffing shortage should be used. Because everything beyond this is a causal factor of something else. Either a legal or contractual obligation, an unusual operation, training, a choice, whatever. That's the only time. So remember that. That's hugely important. That is staffing shortage. So now I'm building my schedule. The first thing I do is I honor my annual leave agreements. Okay? So let's say for this facility, because 10 is the number, that 1 is our number for this. So I take 1. And this is my prime time annual leave agreement, requirements, whatever you want to call that. And that places me at 11. Now this is going to address something that Dennis actually asked earlier. We'll get into this as I build the schedule. I am 1 over the numbers, right? I am good to go. So I'm going to start going through my wheel. Actually, I'm going to go through my list. I've got a list of things I need to accomplish, whatever that is. I've got recurrent training. I have an OJTI class. I have lots and lots and lots of other stuff. All right? So I make a choice, I'm a schedule builder, that on this particular day, I am going to pull a controller off for recurrent training. Nothing wrong with that. I'm over numbers. I'm good to go, right? So I'm going to do a -1 for recurrent training. This is a choice. Now, lots of different kinds. So this is important. This is important to remember. Recurrent training makes you recallable, correct? Okay, but I happen to be the manager at Centennial Tower. And my recurrent training person is going to Denver TradeCon today to get recurrent training. So they're recallable. Yeah, kind of, sort of, not really. By the time I call them so they're gone. But I made a choice. That's okay. I'm now at 10. And I got nothing else going on. So I'm almost ready to hit publish. And I'm ready to hit publish, and I walk in, and somebody walks in, my manager, and says, hey, look, man, I just argued for a half an hour at the program office. Here's the deal. This meeting next week for Metroplex has to happen, and this person has to go. But boss, look, this isn't an option. Make it happen. Okay. All right, so I go back in, I take this person off, right? And now I'm at 9, and I took him off for, either right before the program, doesn't really matter in this particular, one of those 2 things. So I'm going to use overtime. Before I build the schedule, I'm planning this. Okay, I'm going to assign overtime. And I'm going to assign overtime, in this case, we're going to call it for program, just because. So I'm going to put a +1, and it's for Tamer program. Okay? I'm back to 10. I'm happy I hit publish. I have 10 people. I have published to guideline numbers. Okay? And I use 1 overtime, because we made a choice. We actually made a choice to use program, and that's okay. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're good. All right, okay. Now I'm going to work backwards for the exact same scenario. We'll get into some of the things Dennis talked about, some of the things Dave asked about. We'll get into a lot of this. So first of all, the phone rings at 7 o'clock in the morning. I pick it up, and the controller is calling in sick. I have -1 sick leave. I'm at 9. Okay. 2 things that need to change in our mindset. Everybody remembers, I think, the furlough from 3 years ago and the furlough worksheet we used for overtime. That furlough worksheet from overtime actually came from the Rocky Mountain District overtime worksheet prior to furloughs, because calling an overtime is a choice, and it's a decision to be made. It is not automatic. We have some automatic things which we've agreed to publish to 10 in this particular case. That's something we agreed to. That's an MOU we've agreed to. We can still publish below 10. We have to have a kind of a conversation why we do it. We try not to do that. 9 is not automatic overtime. Because that's the first choice you got to make. This is business acumen at its best. So I have 9. I need to analyze what's going on. That example today because it's kind of nasty outside. Let's say it's a sunny blue day here in Denver. Okay. Probably not running ILSs, so should we get there? Okay. Weather's good. Forecast looks good. Pretty happy. Anything unusual going on today? No. Pretty good. Hey man, can we make it work with 9? That decision might be, you know what, we're working with 9. We're fine. And there is no overtime to talk about. But let's say that's not true because we want to use the overtime. So let's say I look outside and go, oh my gosh, it's garbage. And it's going to be garbage all day. And it's going to be a pretty busy day. And you know, I actually need 10. 10's actually my number. So I need to call it overtime. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go, hey, do I have any programs that cause me to... And the first thought is, hey, I got tamper. Oh, wait. I can't double bill them because they didn't cause 2 people to be. So tamper's off the table. That causal factor has sailed. It's gone. Crossed off. Done. Can't use it. And I continue to work backwards. Do I have any Article 48? No, I do not. Did I do any quality control-wise? No, I don't have any training. Oh, yeah. I chose to send somebody to recurrent training. That's my choice. I made that choice. And I'm going to continue. And because I have 2 choices here now. Look, if I'm Centennial and I send them to, I probably don't have a choice. And I go, well, I can't recall. But there is also that, hey, you know what? I can recall that person and not use overtime at all. This is why we use the wheel, that's why it's a choice. So let's say, for sake of argument, just for the conversation, let's say it's not recurrent training. Let's say it's different. Let's say it's OJTI training. Let's say that I have a developmental who's certified on 3 positions who technically could work position today. And I chose to use overtime to say, oh no, they need to train today. Now I can make the exact opposite decision. I cannot call in overtime. And I can say, I'm sorry, you're not training today. I can't have it. And I'm not going to use overtime. But let's say I decide to say, no, they're going to train. And I call it overtime. Then actually training, OJTI training is what caused that overtime. Because I'm making a choice. This is why I say it's not bad or good. That's why it's so important. That may be a greatest choice you've ever made to spend that money. It's not a bad decision. It is a decision. I'm going to use overtime today to make sure that this person, who I planned on doing OJTI on today, continues to get their training today. I can make the other choice too and not use overtime and say, you're back on the floor. But if I choose not to put them back on the floor, and I'm calling overtime, simply didn't cause it. Because I had a resource sitting right there in my building I could have prevented overtime with. And I chose not to do that. It's the why behind the wheel. It's the why behind the causal factors, and it's what will happen if we don't use it actively. Air traffic managers, your air traffic manager, my bosses, and I fight for the air traffic managers all the way up the chain to get you the resources you need. So when an air traffic manager comes to me and says, look, Aaron, here's the story. My staffing is X. My target staffing is Y. I have X amount of developmentals. I need to get training done, and sometimes I need to use overtime so I can get training done. And I say, you know what? I 100% agree with you. We have got to get this facility beyond the 56% and up into 85, 90%. And those 12 developmentals you have, they've got to train. We can't use them every day in the time. I've got a couple of facilities like that are half developmentals and half CPCs. I've got to train them. So they say, look, in order for me to accomplish that, I've got a plan. I'm going to train 2 developmentals every single day, one in the evening. It's probably going to cost me overtime. It's going to cost me $25,000 in overtime this quarter. But boss, the good news is 6 days a week. 6 days a week this quarter. I'm going to have 2 people training for 4 hours a day. That is awesome. That's awesome, right? So I got 6 people training. So I'm going to get 48 hours a week of training. That's awesome. I got 48 hours a week going on. That's killer, right? And depending on which quarter you're in, there's 12 or 13, 11 or 12 weeks in a quarter. Depends on which quarter you're in. But here's the beauty. I'm going to keep the math simple. And because, I'm probably the most gentle, benevolent manager when it comes to data. I'm going to cut them some slack too. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to multiply by 10 because, things happen. So that's awesome. I'm going to give you $25,000. And with that $25,000, you are going to accomplish 480 hours of OJTI above and beyond what you accomplished last quarter because you did that with no overtime. So let's say last quarter, the reason we made this choice is they only accomplished 120. And that just is not going to cut the mustard. So it's a trade-off, right? It's the whole my son wants to borrow the car to put gas in my car. I'm going to give you 25 grand, and for that 25 grand, what I get as a district manager is a healthier facility because you're going to do 600 hours of OJTI. Awesome. Good business decision. This is why we use metrics to make good business decisions, right? In fact, 600 hours of training, think about that. That could be 2 or 3 more CPCs if they were close. So man, then my overtime will go down the next quarter. This is great. Everybody wins. So at the end of the quarter comes, we're going to do our quarterly review. And they spent $24,994 in overtime. And they even came in under budget. That's what we do in the government. That's awesome. Nice job, right? And then so we start pulling all the reports and the metrics, and I'm so excited. And they got 128 hours of OJTI done. This next conversation is probably not going to go well. Okay? This is why we want to have these accountable metrics. Hey, I don't mind spending $25,000 if I'm getting something for it. That is why overtime coding is important. So when I code $25,000 in overtime for training, and my boss says, what'd you use it for? And I say, I increased my training in this facility by 480. Oh, it's a good answer, isn't it, boss? Because we did exactly what we told you we were going to do. Okay? That's why it's important. So that is, I think, the overtime wheel backwards and forwards, in kind of a nutshell. A few examples of how to build schedules. And it's really, the important part of that is, why are we doing all this work? It's so we can get and maintain the resources we need to do our jobs. That is really the most important. So please, leave with, it is important because of that. And now, let's learn how to use the wheel. It's pretty magic when you use it.
So Aaron, we think we understand how the wheel works on the way up in coding overtime. Can you please explain how it's coded on the way back down after the schedule is published?
Thanks, David. So that, on the way down, or backwards, as I like to say, is a lot more complex. So that's going to take some simple math and maybe a little scribble scratching. So as we talked about on the way up, operations is number one. We get our number, and just like we've gone through in other examples, we go through if we need overtime, we go this direction, because this is we feel the most important things that need to be accomplished. So let's talk about on the way up first to really hit your way down question. Leave liability. This was difficult to explain to people. Annual leave and sick leave is a liability on the agency. It is something that we did not agree to in contractual language. It is not. It is something that every government employee is given to them by Congress. Whether you work for the FAA or any other government agency, when you signed on the dotted line and took your oath of office, they said, hey, when you start working for us, we're going to give you 4 hours annual leave, and then after 10 years, we're going to give you 6, and then after 15 years, we're going to give you 8. And we're going to give you 4 hours of sick leave every pay period. We didn't make that choice. Congress made that choice. That's a liability, and it's a liability for lots of reasons. I cannot take annual leave, and I can retire at the end of the year, and I can take my 400 and whatever it is, 40 hours of annual leave. And guess what? The federal government's going to write me a check for it. Pay me now or pay me later. Sick leave is a liability because I could take it any time. I could unfortunately leave here and be in a car accident and have to take 6 weeks off. Well, guess what? They will write me a paycheck while I'm in the hospital because I have sick leave. Liability. As you go through, it becomes less liability and more choice. So, this is why you go backwards. So we built our schedule, and now we're on the downslope or the backward side, as you say. I built my schedule, and because I am a fantastic manager and schedule builder, I am at numbers. Okay? Now, you have to look at how I built that schedule to get to my numbers. So, going in order. At the very top, you know what, I'm going to go a little lower, because, I got to go backwards and forward. So here's my number. This is my schedule publication. Okay? Before I got to that number, though, I gave 2 annual leave slots, because I was required to do that. Okay? And we'll say, for sake of argument, I have one person on Article 48 collaboration work group in the tech center. So I really started up here with 13, really, right? And then I got to 10, so now I'm at 10, it's the day of the shift. Here it is, it's the day of the shift. And the phone rings. You know how Mike rings. You know, so the phone rings, and it's Michael, and he's taking sick leave. That numbers, -1 gives me 9. This is sick leave. Obviously, sick leave caused me calling overtime. That's not how the wheel works. Because sick leave is what? It's a liability. It's the most important thing we do. It is part of my pay and earnings statement. It is part of my benefits package. So I start on my thing here, and I say, okay, do I have a program? In other words, is there a Metroplex meeting that I took people off the schedule? Is there a TAMR meeting or training going on that I think people off the schedule? And in this case, the answer is no, there's not. I don't have a program. Okay? I come to the next one and say, okay, did I take anybody off schedule for Article 48 collaboration? And I look back and I go, oh, looky there. Bingo. Had I have not made that decision to send that person to New Jersey for their Article 48 group, I wouldn't be calling in overtime. So what caused me to call in overtime is not the last thing that happened. It's the lowest priority thing that happened, because had I not made that decision, I wouldn't be calling in overtime now. What's really important to understand with causal factors is not the same as charging overtime, okay? A lot of program officers talk about charging overtime. If I'm building my schedule, and I come over here and I say, okay, I can give you that person for a week to go TAMR, but I can't do it without calling overtime, so you need to give me some overtime money. That's program overtime, and we actually charge it. It's like using the program office's credit card. In this case, working backwards, I'm using my own credit card. I'm on the hook. However, I do want to let somebody know that the reason I use my credit card, excuse me, was because of this. So I'm an analogy guy, right? Michael and I talked about this earlier. If I use my credit card because I want to take my wife to a really nice dinner and go to the symphony, it cost me $500, that's a choice I made. Am I wrong with that? It's a choice I made. If I use my credit card to buy a new hot water heater because I didn't have enough money in the bank to pay for it with cash, that's what caused me to use my credit card. Oh, wait a minute. No, because I spent $500 going to the symphony and dinner last night, I don't have $500 in my checking account anymore, so I had to use my credit card. So do you see the difference there? It wasn't that I had to use my credit card because of the water heater. Well, you should have planned for the water heater. You should have the money in the bank for your water heater, your roof. Those are things that we know happen in life, right? Because you chose to spend all of your money going to have fun, nothing wrong with that. I'm just telling you that that's what caused me to use that credit card, because I didn't have any money in my checking account. So I went out to dinner and I went to the symphony. Now, if I had to do it all over again, would I make the same choice? Maybe. That's the beauty of overtime. This is not a judgment call. There's going to be some back analysis of it, and when a continued decision is made that continues to cost overtime, yes, there needs to be conversations about why do we continue to make the same decision knowing it's going to cost you overtime. Okay, so we're going to hit one last really important part, I think, in overtime, and that is the difference between what we're going to call billing or charging the overtime and a causal factor. Okay. Billing and charging of overtime. That is during scheduled builds mostly. It is, do you have to have overtime from the program office in order to make this happen? So that will be a lower number in many cases than the causal factor. So I'm building my schedule, and I have an extra body on it after my annual leave obligations are done. And they say, can we have a person for a week to go to the tech center for TAMR? And do you need backfill overtime? Well, in all good conscience, no, I don't. Because if I take them off the schedule and I backfill somebody, I'm going to be one over. That doesn't even make sense. So I say, no, I do not need backfill overtime to make this happen. So I make it happen, and off they go. Now, On the second day they're gone, I take a sick leave hit, which now puts me below my number and I do need overtime. When I go backwards, the causal factor of me calling it overtime was that Tammer project, me allowing that Tammer project to happen. It caused it. It caused it. But I can't go backwards and bill it. Once I say I know I don't need it, the billing charging is done and over. So the reason that these are so important is so when we tell the whole business story on what a project cost, we can say, we were billed and gave the facilities $200,000 in overtime to make this happen. Additionally, their support cost us $400,000 in overtime. Ergo, it was a $600,000 overtime project. Overlay. Which checkbook comes out of doesn't really matter. It's like putting a memo in your checkbook. It's the same checkbook. This is coming out of vacation fund. This is coming out of Aaron's wine fund, whatever that may be, right? It's important to have that memo. So think of causal factor as a memo. All right, so we've talked about some tools to give us the data we need for facility or for business acumen. Here is the culmination of business acumen in a measurement tool, which we've never talked about, except for maybe notionally. When I was in DC, we developed a project called Facility Work Plan. So Facility Work Plan, or FWP as we hear it referred to, is nothing more than a really, really detailed balance sheet of labor hours. It's very simple. Every person that works for you has 2,080 labor hours that goes into your bank account, and your job as managers and as employees is to manage your own time and have your time managed to account for 2,080 hours. It's very, very simple. That's where the leave codes come in. That's where the LDR codes come in. All 2080 is accounted for. You're either working on position, you're doing another duty, you're on a break, you're taking leave. It's all accounted for. And Facility Work Plan is this amazing, basically started as a spreadsheet. It started as a one-page spreadsheet. Now it's about a 45-page spreadsheet being web-enabled that will take all of this data from the various data sources, CrewArt, some of the overtime coding places, all from DataMart, and put it into one place where we can dashboard planning and execution of your labor resources. So the Facility Work Plan is very simple. It is about planning, executing, and adjusting your plan. It is very simple. We're not going to dive into it today. We may have a whole installment on Facility Work Plan in the future as it rolls out to the field. But know that these two things, LDR coding and overtime coding, are paramount to the success of business acumen and a program like Facility Work Plan, which will give us the final tool to be able to, one place, not pulling 26 business object reports, in one place, be able to look at the performance and the utilization of our human resources to determine how and when and where to use them better. All right, so that brings us to the close of our day on business acumen in the Rocky Mountain District. So we want to just do a quick synopsis of everything we talked about, which was a lot of information. I would encourage you all to talk to your managers about this. This needs to be a frequent conversation in the district. It needs to be a part of our culture. So through the XLS model, we've provided some intellectual understanding of some various tools, some processes, and what business acumen really is. Not about cutting money, not about cutting overtime. It is about the proper utilization of our resources through good data. Okay? When you go back to your facilities and we get the intellectual understanding fully dialed in, it is the cognitive recognition every single day on how we LDR code somebody, how we use the overtime causal factors, and then eventually, as we talked about, how all of that rolls into a Facility Work Plan to give our managers the ability to manage the resources that they've been given. Lastly, discipline application. It's a principle here in the Rocky Mountain District, and really simply put, it is doing this every single day in every decision you make. We need to understand this. We are human beings. We are going to make errors in judgment in everything we do, including business acumen. We will make poor decisions on overtime, on operational resource utilization. We will assign resources to the wrong places sometimes. However, when you have a machine this large, We do a lot more right than we do wrong. So let's get to that 95 percentile we talked about. Let's get to 95% coding of our LDR, 95% coding of our operational overtime, 95% success in the decisions we make to manage the resources that we've been given by our appropriators and the general public. And always keep in mind why we are here is to provide the world's safest and most efficient airspace system through fiscal responsibility. Have an awesome day.